In March 1952, an archaeologist reached into the back of a cave and pulled out something that had no business being there. Not parchment, not papyrus, metal. 2 rolls of corroded copper, each one brittle enough to crumble at the wrong touch. Every other scroll found at Qumran told stories, preserved laws, recorded prophecy. This one listed addresses. 64 of them. The Dead Sea Scrolls had been emerging from the Judean desert since 1947. Most of them recovered by Bedouin shepherds who stumbled across cave openings in the cliffs above Khirbet Qumran. The community associated with the site is widely linked by scholars to the Essenes, a Jewish sect that appears to have preserved texts through a period of immense political upheaval. By the time Cave 3 was excavated in 1952, 15 scrolls had been cataloged from that single location. The copper object was the last one found, placed deepest inside, furthest from the entrance. It was designated 3Q15. The other scrolls were religious, literary, or legal in character. The copper one was none of those things. Where they recorded ideas, this one recorded locations. Specific, enumerated, geographically anchored locations, each paired with a quantity of buried gold or silver. No theology, no narrative, a list. The problem was immediate. The scroll could not be opened. Centuries of oxidation had converted the copper into brittle oxide. Conventional unrolling would have destroyed it. The Jordanian government, which held authority over the find, consulted with scholars and eventually sent the object to Manchester University's College of Technology in England. The decision came on the recommendation of John Marco Allegro, an English archaeologist and Dead Sea Scrolls scholar who had been involved with the broader project. Professor H. Wright Baker cut the scroll into 23 strips across 1955 and 1956. Only then did the text become readable, and only then did it become clear that the 2 rolls had always been one document, approximately 2.4 meters in length when whole. Allegro, who had supervised the cutting, transcribed the contents immediately. What the text described was staggering in scale. Across 64 entries, the scroll itemized gold and silver buried at locations across the landscape, each entry with a distinct place name or landmark. The language itself was unusual. While the literary scrolls from Qumran used a form of Hebrew closer to biblical tradition, the copper scrolls' Hebrew resembled the language of the Mishnah, a later rabbinic compilation. Its script, its spelling conventions, and its paleography all differed from the community scrolls. Scholars noted a dating range of approximately 50 to 100 CE, with several researchers including Frank Moore Cross, P. Kyle McCarter Jr., Albert Wolters, David Wilmot, and Judah Lefkowitz converging on a date around 70 CE, the year the Second Temple in Jerusalem was destroyed. Manfred Lehmann argued the treasure described was money accumulated between the First Jewish-Roman War and the Bar Kokhba revolt, during the period when the temple lay in ruins and its wealth had been dispersed or hidden. William Albright placed the date range at 70 to 135 CE, consistent with that same turbulent interval. Editorial authority over the text had been assigned to Józef Milik, one of the most prominent scroll scholars of the era. His initial assessment was skeptical. He believed the scroll was likely Essene in origin, but not an official community document. More significantly, he argued at first that the treasure list was not a real historical account at all. He considered it folklore. That judgment shifted over time. Milik eventually changed his position on the scroll's origin. He came to believe it was not a product of the Qumran community at all, pointing to the fact that it had been found further back in the cave, separated from the other scrolls. He proposed it was a separate deposit, placed there after a lapse in time, by parties unconnected to the community. The scroll was found at Qumran, but may not have belonged to Qumran. That is the detail that reframes everything. If the copper scroll was deposited independently, then its relationship to the other Dead Sea Scrolls may be one of geography only, not of community or authorship. 2 objects sharing a cave does not mean they share an origin. This possibility opens a different set of questions about who made the list, what they expected to do with it, and whether they ever return. Allegro did not wait for Milik. In 1960, after the Jordanian director of antiquities approached him directly for a publication, Allegro released his own edition with translation and hand-drawn transcriptions from the original copper segments. Milik published his official edition 2 years later, in 1962. The accompanying photographs in Milik's edition were described by observers as virtually illegible. The scroll was rephotographed in 1988 with far greater precision. From 1994 to 1996, Électricité de France conducted extensive conservation work, including corrosion evaluation, X-rays, cleaning, and new documentation. Émile Puich's scholarly edition drew on all of that work. Two broad explanations have been seriously considered by researchers. The first holds that the scroll documents a genuine historical treasure, real gold and silver hidden at real locations during a period of catastrophic political violence, most plausibly the destruction of 70 CE. The level of specificity in the entries, the use of durable metal rather than perishable organic material, and the purely practical nature of the text all support this reading. Proponents argue that no one inscribes a detailed inventory onto copper as a literary exercise. The counter-argument associated with Milik's original position and shared by some later scholars is that the amounts described are so vast they strain credibility as a historical record. The total across the 64 entries, if taken literally, would represent an almost unimaginable concentration of wealth. Critics of the historical reading suggest the list may have accumulated legendary or ritual dimensions over time, mixing genuine records with exaggeration or symbolic entries. Neither explanation has been falsified. No excavation has located any of the described caches. No archaeological dig has uncovered gold or silver at any of the named sites that can be connected to the scroll's entries. The locations described use reference points, landmarks, and measurements that have not been conclusively mapped to known geography. What the copper scroll reveals, beyond its own mystery, is a problem of classification. The Dead Sea Scrolls were understood as a library, a preserved record of thought and belief. The copper object does not belong to that category. It is administrative, practical, and material in its focus. Its presence in Cave 3 forces a question about what else may have passed through those caves and under what circumstances that has left no other trace. Since 2013, the scroll has been on display at the Jordan Museum in Amman. Visitors can stand in front of it. The strips of ancient oxide are visible behind glass, the letters still legible. The 64 locations are still listed. The treasure, if it ever existed as described, is still unaccounted for. The scroll was written on metal because whoever made it expected the message to last. It lasted. The coordinates did not expire. Only the world they described has changed beyond recovery, and with it, any reliable way to read a landscape that no longer holds its old names. The one detail that remains most precisely unresolved is not the treasure itself. It is the deposit. The copper scroll was placed furthest back in the cave, separated from the other scrolls, possibly by a gap in time, possibly by entirely different hands. Someone brought it there deliberately. Whether that person ever came back is not recorded anywhere. The unsolved vault. Every case leaves something behind.